well-roundedness is not a good thing in an individual. It's a good thing in a team.
Yes.
But as an individual, well-roundedness doesn't tend to get you very far.
Yes. You need to have a superpower.
You need to have a superpower, and you need to find out what that is, and you need to be unapologetic about it.
Today on the Badass Leaders Podcast, we are joined by someone who doesn't just talk leadership, he lives it at every level. Daniel Steere is a strategist, coach, and communicator who has worked across Fortune 500s, tech startups, and now runs Steering Ventures, a consultancy focused on executive development and strategy. He's as comfortable talking AI and healthcare as he is unpacking the psychology of leadership. Daniel is also the co-host of the Make Work Not Suck podcast. This is a guy who believes in going deep. He's not here to play it safe. So today, we're not doing just surface level leadership fluff. We're asking the hard stuff. Be sure to let us know what you think in the comments section. Are you ready? So join me, Angela Gill-Nelms, on today's episode of the Badass Leaders Podcast, where I'm joined each week by industry experts for intimate and eye-opening discussions about the challenges and joys facing the leaders of today. Listen in and get ready to scale your company, grow your brand, and unlock your full badass potential. So are you game for trying to tell the audience to get ready to unlock their full badass potential?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You want me to tell that camera right there?
Yep.
Get ready to unlock your full badass potential.
Oh my gosh, I freaking love it. Okay, so here's the deal. Before today, the first time that we met, I made the world's best impression.
You made the world's best impression on me?
Yeah, you don't know it. Do you remember what I said to you?
I mean, I was super impressed, but I'm not sure why you think it was the world's best impression.
Because I the very first thing I said to you was that something happened and it was all your fault.
Oh. Nice.
And you were like, wait, what? Because I was late for our meeting. And I stand by the fact that it was all your fault because I was binging your podcast.
Right. That's right. Yeah. And so I think that that's pretty fair. Like I should hold most of that blame.
Yeah. I mean, clearly, duh. I'm so glad. We got that recorded too for all the women who never hear their male colleagues say that they were right. But your podcast is amazing. I've already done a little bit of intro, Daniel, and we have a mutual friend in Scott Wozniak.
Yes.
We do.
Yes.
Which does not surprise me.
I've known Scott for close to 30 years now. And we went to high school together, believe it or not. And
how did this high school develop so many great leaders? Or did Scott just find all the great leaders? Because I've interviewed somebody else that went to high school with him, I believe.
Really? Interesting. So Scott showed up here in Atlanta his senior year. And there were some terrific guys, in my opinion, in our class. And Scott just kind of folded in to our group. And we've been friends ever since. So I'm not sure.
Scott may correct me that the connection may have been college, but I really felt like it was high school. You know, it's another individual like you, very outgoing and gregarious, lots of energy, very much like Scott.
Yes.
And so I'm like, how does it? And all of you guys are doing amazing leadership stuff.
It's been a lot of fun. So here's a silly story, but a very true one. We really quickly became very good friends. And the following spring, the Olympics were in Atlanta in 96. Or summer of 96. And his whole family had tickets to a soccer game. And somehow the schedule worked out where he had to do a college visit that same weekend.
Okay.
And so he was out of town. And so because I had become such good friends with him and with his family, they asked me to come in his place on a family trip to the soccer game.
Oh, wow.
So it was their whole family plus me.
Oh, that's awesome.
And by the end of the drive there, his dad turned to me and said, "It's really kind of creepy, like how similar you are."
Yes, that's why I said that.
Yes, it kind of is. So we still do work together, and I like to introduce myself, and I say, especially if it's one of Scott's clients, I'll say, "Hey, I'm Daniel. I'm Scott's stunt double." or his face guy, body double, whatever it is that I can kind of make an angle for, because we have hired each other, worked with and for each other for close to 30 years now, and it's just been a blast.
Oh, that's amazing. So Scott was episode 1 in this podcast.
Awesome.
He was not the first one that was recorded. He was the second one recorded, because actually a little over a year ago when I decided to kick off this podcast, July 4th, I'm thinking, okay, I know a lot of amazing leaders. If I could have anyone, who would I want to be episode 1?
Yes.
And I was just racking my head. And suddenly I am obsessed with his book, Make Your Brand Legendary.
Yes.
I am his biggest corporate purchaser of it, because I've given it as so many gifts. I keep waiting to just, Scott, get a box of them on my front door. You know my address. You've been here. Anyways. And so I thought, I'm going to ask Scott. And fortunately, we'd already connected a little on LinkedIn and stuff. And he said yes. And I jumped like a little schoolgirl.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. So I'm very grateful about that. Now, let's talk about you.
Okay.
And make work not suck. Okay, first off, that's a really amazing name for a podcast.
It's fun. It took us a minute to find it, but once we found it, we're like, that's it. That's the name.
Okay, and one of the things that I was saying is that we have a lot of great questions, but then I also was reminded, because I was listening to your BS episode.
Okay.
The one you just released.
Why work is BS?
Yes. I was like, let's talk about your BS episode and dig in. And also on it, you do say the word badass in the episode. You say badass nurse somewhere in the episode. I
probably did.
You did.
Yes.
I guarantee you did.
So I have to be careful because I have 2 boys at home,
right?
8 and 12, and they repeat everything they hear.
Nice.
And so my wife and I are trying to keep them as much on the rails as we can in terms of being socially acceptable and appropriate. But I can't then, tell them about my podcast and then say, hey, you're not allowed to say sucks.
Right.
If Daddy's podcast is called Make Work Not Suck. So I do have to be a little bit careful there with what I throw into my different recordings, because there are little ears listening
all the time. But the episode's great. And personally, I'm on this mission for people not to think of badass as being a 4-letter word, basically, because it's not.
Of course not. It's a 3-letter word, or 6-letter word, however you want to. And I have no problem with it. I just have to be careful about the little ears.
Okay, so going back to that episode though, because I loved it, and I do want to kick off with that type of questions around that, because it really ties to where someone might see their work for passion or not, and this whole idea of working a job that you strongly believe or you just feel like it's making no impact on the world.
Right.
So can you tell me a little bit about what made you start digging into that, especially in this time in our current economy?
I mean, I've been digging into that question for probably more like 10 plus years.
Has it changed at all in 10 plus years, or is it still the same?
I think my understanding has gotten a lot better in 10 to maybe even 15 years. I think I've been wrestling with that question. Because I've worked so many different jobs, from Fortune 500 to technology startups to everything in between. And I've enjoyed many of them. Some of them have been BS. But I just remember looking back on all these different roles and being like, okay, why did I enjoy this role and not that role? Same company, different roles. Is it the manager? Is it the responsibilities? Like, what is it? And that's always kind of intrigued me to understand why people enjoy some roles and don't. But when I step back and look at the big picture, I think that work is an inherently good thing. Now that doesn't
completely agree.
Now that doesn't mean it doesn't suck sometimes. It absolutely sucks a lot for a lot of people. But I think that work, we're fundamentally created to work.
Yep.
And if we don't work, you find the people who don't have to work, they tend to be pretty unhappy, miserable people.
Yep.
Not always, but most of the time. And so I think there needs to be something that we are doing with our time and efforts and talents and skills and abilities that contributes to society, that makes the world a better place. And sometimes you'll get paid for that, and it'll pay the bills, which is awesome. Sometimes it won't, and those are harder situations to navigate. But I just think that so often we have just written off work as work sucks. I want to minimize my amount of time and effort there and maximize the amount of money with the minimum time and effort. And I just don't think that's a good way to spend a third of your life. Because the reality is you're going to spend about a third of your life working, about a third of your life sleeping, and then a third of your life doing everything else. And if a third of your life sucks, that's just not a good place to, that's not a good assumption. I want to challenge that assumption and say, I don't think a third of your life has to suck. I think there are ways that we can find work that is meaningful, that is enjoyable, that contributes to society, and that pays the bills. And if you can check all of those boxes, I think work does not suck.
I'm so glad you ended up on that, because I was about to pause for a moment and say, okay, listeners, I promise you this is not going to be a depressing episode.
It's not.
Okay. I have to readjust. Not comfortable there. Okay. So then I think, one of the reasons that the episode and this idea of a BS job really stood out to me, and like my challenge to some people on this, is that I'm pretty confident I could find a purpose reason for any job that someone has. And I think it's a lot about the psychology behind the perspective you put into life. Like, the people who walk around and everyone is against them.
Yeah.
And that person pulled out in front of them in their car. Like all of these types of things. I think it's a mental shift of saying, okay, well, wait, maybe that person needed to get to the hospital or whatever. And I think when we were building my first startup, Florence, document management company.
Okay. Sure.
And what I used to tell all the team members, and also I think it's the difference between a leader who believes what they're because I guess I'm selling this mission to my team members, right? I'm like, look, document management, not sexy. It was document management and clinical research though. Advancing cures, that's freaking sexy.
Yeah.
And so the reason I wanted to, after listening to this episode this morning on my hot, humid, sunny walk in Atlanta, is that I just wanted to kick off with this. How do you look at a job that some people may, or how if you're a leader, you have certain roles that have to be done in a company? Like you were mentioning, IT support or building software for a hospice company or selling for how do you look at some of those and take a step back and try and maybe even shorten the way your brain thinks about how far you are from the actual customer?
Yeah. I would start by absolutely agreeing with you. It's not so much the job that you're in as it is the story you tell yourself about your job. And most of us have never really evaluated that narrative. And I think that narrative kicks our ass a lot of times, and we don't realize that it's our own fault. So that narrative of, okay, so why does this company exist? And how is my role contributing to this purpose? If the leader has not done the good work and the hard work to translate that corporate purpose down through the organization to help each individual employee understand how they connect to the purpose, that's on them. That's their job. Is they need to help cast that vision and tie people into it in a day-to-day way. But there's also work for every employee to do, right? They've got to do their part to tie their experience to it. So if you are doing IT support for a company that makes software for hospice care, right? Not particularly sexy, probably not going to end up on the cover of Fortune magazine for that. But let's pause for a second and think about what happens if your company or your whole industry doesn't exist. Like, let's just say we snap our finger and you and all of your competitors are gone and there are no IT systems for hospice. Lots of people die.
That would suck. Yeah.
Lots of people die really fast.
Right.
Like
and miserable.
And miserable.
Deaths, right.
Yes, that is a awful thing.
And not to mention, because I have a grandmother who turns 102 in November.
Oh, wow.
And I have the world's most amazing aunt and uncle who have been caring for both her mother, who I believe Grandma Colson's 95, just turned 95.
Wow.
And then my grandmother and both of them live in their house and they are the primary caregivers for these. And, my grandmother has just gotten to the stage where my aunt finally needed to call hospice. I thought she should have called it a while ago because it's so hard. If you don't have hospice, it's also so hard on the caregivers.
Oh my gosh.
Love these people so much. They want to give them the best. And yet that is
at some point you can't.
Exactly. So if you didn't have hospice, then when you said that, I just thought about the impact of that type of scenario.
Yeah. And so many of us have not done that work and thought through this of, okay, well, what would happen to the world if my role didn't exist? If nobody did this job, the world would turn pretty crappy pretty fast.
Right.
You think about a garbage man.
Yep.
Well, I'm just a garbage man. Okay, but if there were no garbage men, the bubonic plague comes back, right? Let's just think about what's going to happen there.
Right, exactly.
There's dignity in that work. Mm-hmm. Now, whether you choose to embrace that's a personal decision. But I think there is dignity in every job. To your point, maybe there's an exception. Maybe your listeners can find
add into
one.
The comments.
Give us a comment. Let us know what you think is a job that has zero dignity to it. But understanding that and embracing that is, I think, a huge step towards making work not suck.
Yes, it is. Yeah. And it's that's that mindset shift. So, and when the coaching and stuff that you do and the leadership that you do and the work that we do at the Aging Group is so much about the mindset of things.
All about mindset.
Right? And driving a healthy mindset. Okay. So also not on your prescriptive questions for today. So just digging in off script.
Bring it on.
Bring it on. So I am listening to your podcast, and subscribers will put it in the comments so that you can subscribe to it. You also should do what I did. Is I have a new team member, my new associate director, is starting on Monday, and she's already been listening to the podcast so she can keep me straight, make sure I'm not the leader that makes her job suck.
Making sure you're making work not suck for her.
Exactly.
Good.
Exactly. So, but your whole message really centers around 4 key pieces. Okay, so vision, journey, culture, and results. And I have to tell you, I still struggle with journey before culture.
Yep.
So that and I know a big piece of it is because I am all about building amazing cultures. And I think if you can build amazing cultures, you can basically get anywhere.
Yep.
However, I would
agree.
Yeah. So tell me, though, I mean, you guys are very thoughtful about why vision is most important, or at least, leads the path.
Why you got to start with vision.
And I love that results are at the end because most people want to start with the results.
Yes.
So tell me how this came about.
So a lot of this comes about from my co-host, Ryan Hodges.
Yep.
And he's been doing probably more of that homework and interior research. Interestingly enough, it aligns very closely with the DISC assessment.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So if you think about it, vision tends to correlate with high D people. Journey is about the experience, about the way we're going to get there. Right.
Okay.
So those tend to be, I think those tend to be the S's. Okay. No. Those are the I's.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm trying to remember what the DISC stands for. If this particular one has those spelled out, like
D is more the dominant
right?
personality. The I's would be extrovert, people oriented. Okay. So the life of the party kind of folks.
Yep.
The culture, or the S, would be more of the steady. They're introvert. Or they are introvert people oriented. And the last one would be C's, which are introvert task oriented.
Got it.
So your accountants are usually results people.
Yes.
A lot of times your salespeople are too. Sometimes your salespeople are I's, but
I've met mostly.
They're either I's or C's.
And hey, I'm not against salespeople because I know some amazing salespeople who do an amazing job. And if you believe in the product, which I also think is another thing, and I'm not sure if it was that episode or it was another one. I think it was that episode because you were talking about the percentage of people who think their job is basically
BS.
Meaningless.
Right.
BS, right? And and you and Ryan are so amazing. I love your banter back and forth. I just crack up at you guys. Anyway, but you were talking about how really you had these categories of like marketing, IT, PR, and sales were in this area that a huge, overwhelming percentage, like 38, 40%, something like that, thought it was BS. And then your nurses and teachers and stuff like that had a lower thing. And I think it's if you're selling something you don't believe in, once again, a mindset.
Yeah, it's a mindset thing. I think it's really easy for you to work in a hospital and understand the dignity of what you're doing. It is a lot harder to work in a PR agency, not because anything's wrong with PR, but because PR agencies work for companies who create products who you're just
the distance
so many steps removed from the actual value creation. And if any point along that way, you're like, that doesn't feel good to me, then it's going to be really hard for you to get out of bed on those hard days and feel like you're really making the world a better place by going to work.
Yeah, so I think it's mindset, believing in what you're doing, and being in an environment that has integrity within the culture component of it. Because I was thinking as well in the PR part, when you're talking about like getting hacked or getting all these different things, I thought, well, I could once again think as a PR person, if you're able to express what happened in a way so that people understand it, then you help the people at the company keep their jobs. And you help their kids then be able to have food and clothes because they kept their job, right? Those types of things.
Yeah, there's lots of good things.
But you have to have that within it. Okay, so back to journey before culture. Convince me.
All right. So here's what I've seen. I had a client recently that had the same disagreement with me. They were all about people first. And we philosophically disagreed. And I said, here's why I disagree with you, is because the parts of the journey, right? You've got to think about journey is strategy. Journey is process. Journey is standard operating procedures. If you put people in front of that, you are going to create a hero culture.
Tell me more. What's a hero culture?
A hero culture is people that do amazing things, but I can't scale the business because Emily is awesome. And Emily takes care of that. And we don't know how Emily does what Emily does, but we just need you to go be more like Emily because we've put a great person in that place, but we've never defined the role. We've never defined the success criteria. We've never defined exactly what it is that makes Emily good at what she does.
Okay, can I challenge this?
Okay, please. Yeah.
Again. Because I think that's a difference between saying you have this rock star. So the companies that we hate and the roles we hate are ones where you're Emily and you're a rock star, or you're Katie and you're an executive producer of a badass podcast. And people think only Emily or only Katie can ever do this. Okay.
Yes.
And so then you prevent that. We hate the jobs and companies and cultures that prevent that person from growing and moving to the next level because of that. I would say back is that I create a great culture because I help Emily understand that if you then optimize and grow and hire people underneath you and then empower them, they then grow into this and then you grow into what it is next. So
Absolutely.
I feel like that's like but one of your episodes that I thought, okay, maybe I could agree with Daniel on this. I really think it was when you started talking about if you don't know where the bus is going or what the journey is going to look like, then it's nearly impossible to create a culture or hire the right people on it. And
that was going to be my counter challenge to you is
I will hand that to you.
You've got Katie. Katie's awesome. She's a rock star. But because we put people in front of process, what happens when podcasts are no longer a thing?
Right.
You don't have a strategy and you're committing first to Katie and then trying to build your strategy around Katie instead of, with all respect to Katie, saying, okay, what's the game we're playing now? How are we going to win? And then figuring out who do we need to win that game.
Yeah. Oh, one of the things I love about this, Daniel, is that in my day job, help commercialize technology coming out of Georgia Tech and Emory in the medical space. And one of the conversations I like to have with young startup companies, and actually startup companies of all sizes, is keeping in mind who is the right person, who's the right CEO for this company at the time.
At this stage.
At this stage, and where we need to go and where we need to, you know, X, Y, and Z. And I think that really amazing leaders understand that, but it takes a level of humility and also the ability to kind of step back and do analysis and say, and so then that's where I would say, okay, I can see your journey piece.
It's hard. I wrestled with it too, because I do value the people, but I have seen enough instances where we value the people over the strategy and the process, and we find ourselves locked into a set of people. And then when the world changes, we don't know how to change with it because our assumptions are the people rather than the strategy and the processes.
Which I think, though, to go back to my counter argument, we're going to just use Katie as this. Hopefully Katie's not going to then leave and be like, never mind, I don't want to, like,
she's already quit. She's like, this sucks. I don't want to listen to them.
Done. But think about this, like in the strategy sessions that we have, because she is basically a co-founder of this podcast as well. This is hers just as much mine. But also, she helps with all of our branding team. Like like the amount she's grown in skills that are translatable into so many other areas.
Right.
And I believe, and it's one of the things that I love about an engineering brain is the idea to solve problems.
Yeah.
And so what Katie did before this, we both worked at the same company.
Okay.
And she was being very undervalued. I came in and I'm like, we have this part-time customer service person who is freaking amazing. Right. And moved her to full-time. And then when the company did layoffs, I was like, hey, will you work with me? Why? Because she is just amazing at solving problems, providing best-in-class customer service, and wants to learn and help people be their best selves. So if there aren't podcasts one day, a person like Katie, who's continuing to grow in these other areas, is gaining skills to go and thrive in another way.
She's a rock star. She's going to be successful wherever she goes. And you need to be careful because I can hear people wanting to poach her from you.
They are. No, she's not.
You might want to stop talking her up right now if you want to keep her.
Sucks. She's awful. Like she's just so bad. Okay, but anyways, so yeah, you see, I think though this is fun to think through.
I think it's a really good challenge, and I appreciate you poking on it and saying, okay, does that really make sense? I have found that vision, journey, culture, results framework applies just about everywhere. And I have found myself surprised with how many places I have tried to apply that and found insights that I would not have found without it.
I love this. Give me an example.
You want a personal example or kind of a corporate team example or a organizational example? Yes. All of the above? All right.
Personal.
All right.
First.
I'll start with the personal example.
Okay.
I was giving this presentation to a large group in Austin, Texas. And it's probably, I don't know, maybe say 300 people in the room. It's a workshop. And they are all, I think they ran apartment complexes. So it had apartment complexes. And I asked somebody to go through that framework with me about a personal goal.
Okay.
And this gentleman stands up, very brave, super impressed with him. He says, my vision is to sell 5 paintings.
Okay.
And I said, can I pause you right there?
That feels like a result.
And he's like, yeah. And I said, okay, I think that's a result.
Yep.
I think your vision is probably something more like, I want to be a successful artist. And the guy just starts beaming. And I was like, okay,
yes,
I think I got it,
yes.
right? You want to be a successful artist. 5 paintings is simply how you're going to measure it this year. Right. And next year it's going to be 10, and the year after that it's going to be 20, right? But it isn't about 5. Right. It's about being a successful artist, right?
I love this.
And he's like, yeah. And I was like, okay, now keep going. And so he's like, well, my journey is I'm going to have to set aside this amount of budget for paint, and I'm going to have to go to these shows, and I'm going to have to make sure I'm practicing my craft this many hours a day, this many weeks. I'm like, yeah, I know jack squat about painting, but that all sounds good to me. It's like, tell me about the culture side. Tell me about who's going to help you. Tell me about how you're going to need to grow emotionally through this journey. And he says, you know what? I'm going to have to get a lot more comfortable with rejection.
Oh,
if I'm going to sell
powerful.
5 paintings. And I was like, dude, you should be getting up here and teaching instead of me.
Yeah, that was
I did
good.
not see that coming. But he's absolutely right that if you've got a problem with rejection and your goal is to sell 5 paintings, you're not going to make it.
Yep.
Because you're going to have to go through a whole lot of rejection to sell 5 paintings. And most leaders, especially visionary leaders, have a blind spot in that cultural, relational, emotional spot. And so, and this is true of me. I have these big visions and I'm got a great plan to get there and I'm crushing it. And then at some point I get my feelings hurt and I'm totally derailed.
This girl challenges your whole thing.
Yeah.
hurts your feelings,
And
you're
I'm just like, I'm an idiot and nobody likes me. But if I had spent the time to sit down and think through, okay, well, what's that emotional journey going to be like?
Right.
What's it going to feel like to do that? And who's going to help me with that? And that's the part that, at least for a visionary leader, somebody who's strong in vision, their blind spot's the opposite side. And that's true for every one of them.
Absolutely.
The opposite is your blind spot.
Yes.
And so for this guy, I thought he did a fantastic job of kind of identifying that blind spot and being able to then walk himself through it and say, yeah, okay, if I'm experiencing a lot of rejection, that's not a sign that it's not working. Right. That's a sign that it is working.
Tell me more.
Well, if you're not being rejected, you're not doing it right.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
You're either not charging enough or you're not putting yourself out there. You're
Yep.
not taking risks. Right? So, but so many of us, because we've not done the pre-work to understand how am I supposed to interpret that rejection? We just assume rejection is wrong and bad, and therefore I must be doing it wrong.
Right.
But he had done that work and he was like, yeah, I'm going to have to get a lot more comfortable with that if I'm going to sell the 5 paintings I want to sell.
Yep.
So it was vision, journey, culture, and results.
Okay, corporate example. And a corporate example where you had a team that was absolutely like, Daniel, you've lost your mind.
Okay.
Results has to be the most important thing, because if we don't have results, we're not going to keep our board happy. We're not going to keep our investors happy. We're going to run out of runway. No one's going to have a job. This company isn't even going to be here. So Daniel, please tell me why results should not be first.
Why they should not be first?
Yes.
Because I had a great story of a company who was so results oriented they had convinced themselves that results were actually their vision.
Yeah, tell me more.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So I was working with a company a couple of years ago, larger company, several $100 million.
Okay.
And I'm meeting with one of the kind of the larger groups within the company. So it's not the C-suite and the whole organization, but it's a pretty large group. Engineers, technical field, hardware and software, super brilliant people in the room. And I'm walking through this framework with them. And I said, you know, having spent a couple of days with you guys, it's pretty obvious to me that you guys are a very strong results-oriented company.
Yeah.
And the senior leader, who's an old friend of mine from college, but not exactly a career tip here for you guys, he stands up and he challenges me. He says, I don't think we're a results company. I think we're a vision company. And I said, interesting. Could be wrong. Explain to me why you think you're a vision company. He says, well, we've got a very clear vision. Our vision is to be a $500 million company.
Once again, results.
And I said, I don't think that's a vision. And he said, it's a great vision. And I said, I think that's a result. And he's like, nope, that's a compelling vision. And I said, okay, can I sell $500 million worth of ice cream? And he's like, well, no, we're a technology company. And I was like, but your vision said nothing about technology. It said 500 million. And if I get to 500 million selling popsicles, we win, right? He's like,
I'm game.
Well, no. And I said, this is why I think you're a results company, is because you think your results a vision, but it's not. So one other example. Let me guess, you guys don't have good standard operating procedures, do you? You guys don't have SOP manuals, do you? And in a room of like 30 people, no one will look me in the eye.
Yeah. Because, you know, they're like, absolutely not.
I put my finger on it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, guys, this is a room full of technical delivery people. I was like, where's the process people? Who here in the room is responsible for process documentation and that kind of stuff that has to be done for the kind of work that you're doing?
Right.
Nobody raises their hand and nobody will look at me. And I'm like, in a room this size, if you guys are doing hundreds of millions of dollars, there has to be this person. And down front is the HR manager. And the HR manager has his hands in his face. Like he can't, not only will he not look at me, he can't even look up.
This is amazing.
It's fantastic.
It is like so supreme shame.
Yeah, it is. and I'm like, surely there has to be a process person.
Right.
And he interrupts me. He says, we fired them because they weren't delivering results.
Oh my gosh. That is epic.
And I was like, guys, I kind of rest my case. Like, you're a results company, and that's not bad. But just understand that with being a results company, that means your blind spot's journey.
Right.
And if your blind spot's journey, it means that what's holding you guys up from breaking through to that next level, from hitting that 500 million that you want, is the process people you just fired.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's why it's so important to have. I actually love, I've done the DISC assessments and stuff, but my favorite is Working Genius.
Oh yeah. That one's really good.
And the reason I love Working Genius is because I have had the first time I ever used it, and I'd been working with some team members, and one in particular I was really frustrated with, right? And then I took a step back because they had done Working Genius before I arrived.
Okay.
And so then I said, hey, send me everyone's Working Genius. And I did this map of them. And then I took a step back and I was like, well, of course, he's not even in the right role for the skill set that he has. And it was also this whole mindset of making sure that you build a team that isn't just people who are wonder or invention or too much discernment, that much. So having the technical people, the people who are amazing with relationships and sales, your process. I personally love SOPs.
Oh yeah.
So
you got to have them.
Absolutely. But I also did a lot of FDA inspections when I was in clinical research. And I'm like, they're your friend. Embrace them. Give them a hug. That's what we should make. An SOP pillow, a cuddle doll that says SOPs.
I'm working with a client right now. The CEO is very strong in wonder, and everybody else around him is very strong in execution.
Oh.
So he comes up with ideas and they just
do it.
And they just crush it. Right. But what they're finding is
they don't have discernment.
They don't have discernment.
Yep.
Right. And so they're doing these retrospectives and they're like, yeah, well, we probably shouldn't have done that. And I'm like, so who's the discernment person who's going to be helping us evaluate these ideas? Because I love the fact that the CEO's got 100 new ideas every morning. Like, that's great. You need somebody like that. But then you got to pair them with somebody who's like, 99 of those are terrible. We should never do them. But that one's a gem. Let's go.
One of the phrases, a couple of phrases I love. One is from Cloud and Townsend's book, Boundaries.
Yep.
And it's no is a complete sentence. The second one, and I learned this when we were building that software company and we had our first major customer that wanted custom work.
Oh, yeah.
And I have no problem with difficult conversations. And I finally had to say to this individual, because they, of course, wanted everything.
Of course they did.
And then, of course, sales were like, you got to build everything.
Right.
And, of course, the devs, they're like, yeah, I want to build everything. And somebody's got to say, everything you say yes to means we're going to say no to something else. So we have to, within a team, choose those yeses wisely.
Very wisely.
And just getting the customer to understand that and having that piece in the conversation was just like, okay, never mind. And sales, they were our raving fans for forever. So yeah.
Yeah. Very, very important.
Okay, but what was the third? So we did personal, we did corporate, and then you had one other idea.
Like a project.
Project, okay.
Oh, it's actually similar to the client I was just referencing. They had this innovative idea and they're like, this is great. And they launched it and the team crushed the execution of it. And they came back and they wanted to do a retrospective on how did this go and what was the ROI.
Right.
And they couldn't figure out if it had succeeded or not.
Oh, this is interesting.
Because they had never really defined why they were doing it in the first place.
So they didn't pause to say what success looks like.
They had not defined success. And so they had a great idea, and it was a cool idea, and the technology was cool, and the experience was cool. And so, but cool isn't a business plan.
Yes.
And so they had done this thing that was cool, but they didn't have anybody in the room who was like, why are we doing this?
Right.
And how will we know if it's been successful? Right? So you got a lot of journey people here. Blind spots are results.
Yep.
For a journey person.
Yep.
And you have to start with vision. So even though vision's not their blind spot, you have to start with vision. Why are we doing this? And it's amazing how many projects, even projects I've been on, that we're 6 months in and we're like, hold on, why are we doing this again?
Yeah.
And does this still make sense?
Oh, see, that piece is, I love this. So I learned this from Andreas Garcia, who is the CTO, co-founder of Florence Healthcare. And he instilled in me this love of experiments as well. Mm-hmm. And this mindset of like, hey, let's try something for a period of time. Here's what, and setting up for what.
Right.
But then having that moment too. And I think if to expand on what you were just saying, it's that time to pause and say, wait, should we even still be doing this?
Right.
I love the fact that, so for example, Jesse starts on my team at Biolocity on Monday, and Jesse also should not be stolen by anyone. So I've been trying to hire this girl since 2017. True story. Wow. And she's amazing. She's a badass. And one of the things I plan on telling her to do in the very beginning is, okay, I want you, as you're onboarding and doing stuff, tell us what things we're doing that are really stupid that we shouldn't
that don't
be
make
doing
sense.
anymore. That don't make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it is there's a lot of social pressure, especially on senior leaders, to do things because they're the things that everyone's doing.
Yes.
Right? Had a client just in the last week or two. It's like, we need to write these blog posts and get these up on SEO. And I was like, okay, before I get started on that, can I ask a couple questions? Why are we doing this? Well, we need to grow our brand. Okay. How are we going to do that? Write these blog posts, get them up on SEO. Okay. So let's talk about the values that are going to guide that exercise. One of the core values is be bespoke.
Oh.
I love that phrase, right? Bespoke is very tailored, very individual. Like a bespoke suit is made only for me.
Yes.
Right? So how is a social media campaign going to be bespoke?
And get good SEO optimization.
And we sell a luxury product. So are our buyers really going into Google and say, how do I buy? Like, is that really how they're going to find this? And he's like, okay, let's put that on the back burner. But again, vision.
Come on, Daniel. If you don't want to write blogs,
if you don't want to write blogs, just say it, right? Get an AI bot to write it for you. But the vision, journey, culture, results. I was like, look, I'm fine with writing blog posts, but let's spend just 5 minutes thinking through, why are we doing this? What is it that we actually want to do? What values are going to guide the way we do that? And then how are we going to measure success? And when I get to the measure of success, I'm like, the people we want to read that are not going to find it there. So we can write blog posts, but I don't want to optimize them for SEO because no one that I care about is going to find them.
Right, right.
So let's go back to the beginning and say, okay, what are we trying to do? We're trying to build brand. Oh, no, you're not. You're trying to build brand awareness with the people that are potential buyers.
Right.
That's a different vision statement. Now let's go back through and see how that changes the journey, culture, and results.
So one of the things I was thinking about when you were talking at that, I mean, I was intently listening.
Of course you were. But you're so bright that you're able to do both.
I was actually listening so intently that I had the statement I was going to make, and I forgot the statement like 3 times.
Okay.
I was like, I'm going to forget what it is. But I think it's a lot of things that people start. We'll use podcasts as an example. Both you and I have a podcast. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of reasons that sometimes people will start a podcast and then burn out quickly is because they didn't really have a vision. They were like, this is cool. I want to talk about this topic. And so I had this conversation. Someone asked me recently, like, why did you start Badass Leaders Podcast?
Right.
And I said, well, you know what? It is my vision that one day, I did not say it's my vision. I just put that in now.
That's fine.
To be
you don't have to say vision every time you say vision.
I did it just because it was fun right now.
Okay.
But I want one day there really to be a world that instead of going out and seeing a whole bunch of shitty managers that are making work suck, that people understand you can be an amazing leader in anything that you do, and see people from all walks of life that inspire people to say, I want to be brave, be badass, and do that.
Absolutely. I love it.
So, but the reason that I'm saying that is that they were like, well, you know, why? Because like you probably could only interview like 3 badass leaders.
Sure. I actually know a few more that I'm going to introduce you to.
Yes.
So you can meet them and interview them, because I think your vision and our vision is very similar.
Yes.
Of we spend a lot of time at work. Work sucks for a lot of people. Most of that is because of the leaders.
Yes.
And the people that they work for, managers and leaders. And if we can help make those leaders and managers better, we make the world a better place for everyone.
Exactly. For that 33%, 33.3% of their time. So speaking of leaders and managers, let's dig into this question.
All right.
So first off, what do you believe the difference between a leader and a manager is? Or what do you think the difference between a leader and a manager are? And where do most people confuse the two, and why does that confusion matter?
Ooh, that's a lot of packed into 3 questions.
I'm really good at like I really expect you to remember all of them. I will remind you when you.
The leader versus manager distinction has been, at least from what I can read, going on for over 100 years, trying to decide that. I think I would probably side with guys like Stephen Covey, who would say things that, like managers are more about where we're going, how we're going to get there, and why you should care.
Okay.
Right. Engaging more of that vision, and some of the lagging results.
Okay.
And then the manager's job.
Oh, you just said managers were that, and that's
that's
what
the
threw
leader.
me off. I was like, that really feels like a leader.
Leaders probably more vision.
Okay. Yes.
Some of the results, and then the manager's job is more around how are we going to get there, and how are we going to keep the people engaged, and also how are we going to keep score.
Yep. I love that. I've asked quite a few of my guests this question, and I think I'm very much settled on a leader is the vision and helps really empower everyone to actually go along that path and be successful. And then the managers help to assist to make sure those key items or those key steps are accomplished to align with the mission and make it.
And so in my mind, I think it's more of a continuum of you have people that are just extremely far out on the edge of leader, high vision, high energy, high motivation, couldn't lead ants to a picnic.
Yes.
Right? In terms of their attention to detail and ability to project manage things, right? And in some organizations, those people can be wildly successful. And I've worked with other leaders who can just organize and structure and execute fantastically, but they have no idea where to go. They need each other. And I find most roles lie somewhere along that continuum, right? Of I need you to project manage these things, to a CEO shouldn't be project managing anything. But a lot of us have roles that are in the middle, where it requires some leadership skills, but it also requires some management skills. And I think that's where the distinction starts to get more difficult, is because if you've got a director level title in a Fortune 500 organization, well, what are you? Are you a leader or are you a manager? You're something in the middle. And that lack of clarity is, I think, part of what makes so many of those jobs so difficult.
Yeah, I think that... one of the things I think is that also when so many of us were coming up through the ranks, we weren't really taught how to ever be a leader or a manager. Hence why we have the podcast that we're doing, right?
Why the podcast exists.
Yeah, exactly. And so you were just successful at doing your one job. And so then you got promoted over multiple people who were doing that one job or something like that. But I think that understanding, and the more we help people understand the skills that they can have and to bring people along and help individuals understand how to do conflict and some of these things, then really marrying those two terminologies and helping to understand when do I need to put on my solid leadership hat?
Right.
And when do I need to buckle down and put on my management cap?
Yeah. I think the self-awareness to recognize what hat do I need to wear in this situation is maybe one of those meta skills that is very hard to learn, but the best have developed those skills.
Yep. So keep watching so you can do that. So, and here, so the next question is, have you ever seen someone who is a brilliant manager, but a terrible leader? Can you give us an example of a scenario you saw that?
Brilliant manager, but terrible leader. I've got brilliant leader, but terrible manager.
Go for it.
I could give names, but I'm not going to give names because this guy's actually a friend of mine. I loved working for him.
Yeah, we're not going to give names.
And he was just strategically brilliant, relationally very strong. Just people loved him, right? He was terrible at details, terrible at project management, terrible at organizing things, but it didn't matter because he recognized that about himself and he put really good tactical people around him. And so he had a team of people that were just lights out executors. And they would push back on him when they had a different opinion. He'd created a culture where that was the safe thing to do. And so he spent his time doing strategy and relationship stuff, wildly successful because he knew he was not a good manager and never tried.
Well, I think once again, we're going to mindset, humility, self-awareness, and also using tools that you have, right? Because if you've had a coach come in with your teams, and that was some of the things that was really great in some of my previous jobs was when we would get a coach to come in with our executive team and then call us out for our things. Yeah. And really help us understand, okay, this is why you guys are successful in this area and this is why you aren't. These are the next people that you need to. When I work with young startups, I say to them, okay, what I want you to do is open up Excel, list the names of the people on your current team, and list what your superpowers are underneath it. And then take a step back and look and see what superpowers you don't have.
Yeah, what's missing.
And that's what you need to bring because I think what we often see is someone trying to be like that leader and manager because they feel like they have to and they suck at it.
They're terrible at it.
Right? And you're just like, come on.
Balance, well-roundedness is not a good thing in an individual. It's a good thing in a team.
Yes.
But as an individual, well-roundedness doesn't tend to get you very far.
Yes. You need to have a superpower.
You need to have a superpower. And you need to find out what that is, and you need to be unapologetic about it.
I think I once had someone tell me I needed to be less brave and badass.
Less brave and badass?
Yes, I left that company.
You should have. Absolutely. As your unofficial executive coach, you should leave immediately.
Exactly. But it was, I really want you want people to have a passion and love. And once again, work, not suck, and not have all these situations. And so you should be able to do that. Okay, let's talk about vision execution a little bit. And we've talked about vision, but what I want to know is how do you mentor a team when you know the vision does need to change? Like we were talking about that. Like how do you get an organization to actually follow through with the pivot of a vision change when it needs to happen?
Ooh, tricky. So when vision has to change, that starts and ends with the senior leader. And that's a very hard thing to do because most senior leaders view their vision as their baby.
Yep.
And so I cannot think of very many examples where somebody can come in and challenge the vision of the founder or senior leader and remain at that company in a productive capacity. Right? It's a lot like physical fitness, right?
Okay, tell me more. I'll bite.
If somebody was to come up to you and say, you are horribly out of shape,
They would be true right now.
and you need, to get your act together, get in the gym, fix your diet and all that kind of stuff. How likely are you to hire that person?
Well, have you been reading my diary?
No, I have not been.
But no, I get it, right?
It is very
They're
difficult.
telling you your baby is ugly.
It is
and
very
no one wants
difficult
to hear that.
to be the bearer of bad news and then have somebody hire you, and then have that person that you just gave that bad news to hire you.
Okay, but we know, Daniel, that the vision needs to change at some points. The world we need to, especially because you know what, my next card is on politics, mandates, and funding.
Oh yeah, that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that one. So here's the thing: I can't convince you that you need to lose weight or go to the gym or do anything like that.
Right, true statement.
And so there's just no point in me trying to convince you of that.
Okay.
No matter how true or untrue it is. However, if you think you need to lose weight,
Okay.
personal trainer can help you.
Right.
But you don't want to work with the guy who comes in and says, "Hey, you're fat. You should lose weight." Like nobody wants to work with that person.
Right.
So
Right.
in a corporate context, if you come in and say, "Hey, that vision's garbage," they're not going to hire you. Like you're not.
Or this is why maybe then the board outs the current CEO because they're like, we've made a decision. We're doing a pivot and a shift and you're never going to embrace it. So you're gone.
I think honestly, if you really need to change vision, like significant change, not minor tweaks, but a significant pivot in the vision, usually bringing in a different leader is the best strategy because it is so hard for the existing leader to let go of the vision they birthed.
Yeah. Okay. So listeners, here's another opportunity for you to disagree with us. So if you can think of a great example when a significant, huge vision change has been successful with the same leader, pre-post vision, put it in the comments. And we'll chat about it.
I would love to hear that one. But the one that I'm talking about is somebody else challenges it.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you have two assignments.
Yes.
One is that one. The other one is that the current leader loves their vision and somebody else comes in and tells them their vision is ugly and needs to change.
It needs to change. And they hear it and they do it.
Yeah, I want to hear an example.
I can't think of an example. I can think about Mark Zuckerberg made the hard decision. Mobile is the future. We're going to optimize everything for mobile. And this is before mobile became the future and people thought he was crazy, but he's right. And you're like, dude, kudos to you. You made a hard call, pissed off a lot of people, and you were right. But that was him choosing to change his vision.
Right.
And move to a world that's mobile centric. That takes a lot of guts. And that is a very hard thing to do and a lot of compliments to him. But I'm curious how many people had come to him before that he had fired because they tried to convince him of it.
Right, we hear this story
that's
a
the
lot.
That's the part you don't know, right?
Yeah.
And you can't know. But that's honestly what's more common is somebody says, "Hey, this isn't working." And either directly or indirectly, that person, that negative voice gets pushed out of the organization because the leader is more committed to their vision than they are to actually succeeding.
I just wonder if I'm hoping in a couple of years that you and I have found a way to help amazing leaders pivot the vision in their brains. Maybe it's just like
Well, honestly, I've got a tool that it can help with that.
Okay, tell me more.
So it's actually an assessment that goes through the vision, journey, culture, and results.
Okay.
And can see how healthy, effective, and aligned your organization is.
You know what I think this is? This is the skill set that we have to ask. I think great leaders, great coaches, whatnot, ask great questions.
Right.
And encourage curiosity.
Right.
And then if you can do that, then you help the team come upon the answers themselves.
Absolutely.
And so you might be thinking in the back of your head, like, their vision sucks, but you can't say that. However, you can get it to be their idea through inspiring curiosity.
Right. How is that working? Where are you seeing the vision come to life? Where are you not seeing the vision? How does your strategy support that vision? where do you think there might be some gaps in your organization where you've got a vision, everybody knows it, but do they buy it? Like, are they emotionally invested in it? Do the processes really support it? Are you measuring the right things? Those are actually the questions that this assessment asks.
Nice.
So we can begin to see, if we survey or assess the whole organization, we can actually see where the breaks are.
Okay. And I think one thing that I believe is really important is to, if you're the person coming in asking these questions, to ask them with a spirit of true curiosity.
Absolutely.
Because we can tell when someone's just being passive aggressive, like,
Right.
Hey Daniel, how's that working out for you?
Yes,
but,
you can't do it that way.
Exactly. But a spirit of pure curiosity
Right.
is really leaning to that. Okay. So I usually avoid politics, mandates, and funding. But hey, you told me.
I told you to bring it on.
Brave enough to ask something.
Like, I get what I pay for.
You do. Yeah, you do. The check's in the mail. Okay. Elephant in the boardroom right now. The new government policies with research funding cuts, forced return to office mandates, and the general political, I would call, messiness of the moment. How should business leaders be showing up for their teams? And when you're thinking about that, like, what's cowardice right now and what's courage in the current environment that we're in?
I would say it has always been tough to be a leader. I think the last 5 years have been a meat grinder for most leaders, ever since COVID. And I don't think it's slowing down. I think this is the trend. It is hard work to be a good leader. I think if you want to be a crappy leader, that's actually not that bad.
Yeah, that's super easy.
Super easy. Toxic leaders, they're having a great time. But really good leaders are really struggling with these questions. So I don't know how to give, I would say, a blanket answer, because there's so many applications. Right. And as I think through that, it's like, okay, in here I'd go this way. In this situation, I'd go another way. If I could maybe give some advice, I would say that it is less important the decisions that are made, and it's more important how the decisions are made.
Tell me more.
I think that when leaders make reactive decisions based on fear, based on uncertainty, they create a culture of anxiety.
Yes.
That does not serve them well in the long term. And so the leaders that I have seen that have navigated the uncertainty of the last 5 years, right? And I say 5 years because it's COVID plus all the chaos since then. I find they're very tightly aligned.
Yeah.
Right? They're clear on their vision. Now, they're willing to change that vision, but they go back to that vision fairly regularly and then think their way back through the process. And then the organizations that are struggling, they're half-assing it. So I think about AI. And everyone's like, we need an AI strategy. I'm like, I don't think that's the right way to frame that question. They're like, we can save money with AI. I'm like, okay, but look, I'm not opposed to making money or saving money, but how does that fit within the vision, journey, culture, result of our organization?
Right.
Because I've seen organizations look to outsource call centers to AI bots. And again, I have no ethical problem with that. But if you're a luxury brand,
it is so frustrating for the customer.
You're going to piss off your customers.
Yeah, because people like us, I know.
You know.
I laugh, and when I will say this, when I get emails from people who want to be an intern on my company,
right,
and I read that email and I'm like, I seriously know that entire email was written by AI and you didn't double check some of the facts because there are a couple of things in there that are wrong.
And so we know.
Right.
And the good leaders that are navigating very choppy waters right now, I think are fighting hard to keep those pieces together. So what is our vision? What do we believe, even in spite of tariffs and immigration and whatever the news cycle is this week? in the long run, we believe this. And so we're going to continue to move in that direction. And because we believe that, these are the things we're going to start doing to get there. And here's how our culture is going to reflect that and embrace that. And here's how we're going to keep score. Here's how we're going to know if we're doing the things we say we want to do. And we're going to hold ourselves accountable to that. And we're not going to be pushed around by trends, by news cycles. We need to be open-handed to the fact that, yeah, AI is a big deal and your business needs to think about what AI means, but that has to happen within the context of your vision. And this is, new thought. I think that this kind of political and economic and technological uncertainty, it's exposing organizations that have had shitty vision statements and have gotten away with it for a long time.
Just remember you had that thought here.
There's your hot take for the day, is that there's a lot of organizations that have had crappy vision statements and they've gotten away with it. And now that the world is changing, they're getting exposed.
Yeah, I love that, because I also, I do like the phrase, never waste a good crisis, because I think within this journey, it's, once again, if you have a solid vision statement, you're in a challenging time point, it's a great opportunity to take a step back and say, okay, once again, is this the vision we still want to have? Mm-hmm. And okay, times have changed. Maybe the journey needs to change a little bit and our culture and the results need to change a little bit, but with this vision, if that's what success still looks like,
right?
I think it's leaders, the ones I see that are crushing it are the ones who at least portray a resemblance of calm, mm-hmm. thoughtfulness, mm-hmm. and transparency at an appropriate level.
Yeah.
And active communication.
Absolutely.
Humility and a willingness to say, here's the deal. We're in new times. Mm-hmm. We still want to, let's just say, Georgia Tech, advance the human condition.
Right.
We have less funding right now. So now we are going to get creative with some ways. We're probably going to, if I were a leader, like one of them, I would say, we're going to probably try a couple of things. We may not, I want to say as a leader, we may not get it right. Mm-hmm. We're going to do our best. And then we're just going to have an open, transparent, like communication loop where then we can continue to grow and expand on it from there. But I think the ones where people struggle right now in the first 7 months of this mm-hmm. year are the organizations, and I love what you just said about the vision piece. I think it's also the organizations that don't have the leaders who are willing to have an appropriate level of transparency and communication. Mm-hmm. So they're silent because they don't, and then the team members are sitting around saying, wait, am I going to have a job? Like what, you know?
Yeah. And the panic just kind of cascades through the organization.
Exactly.
I think now is a really hard time to be in higher education.
It absolutely is. I can tell you for a fact.
It is a chaotic time to be in higher education. But I completely agree with you. I think the organizations that are going to come through this come through for those two reasons. They have a very clear reason for existing.
Yep.
That's beyond making money. Organizations that exist just to make money, they are scrambling right now with an identity crisis because they don't know how to make money anymore. And that's all that they're here for. And I think a lot of them should just go away. Yeah. Because if you can't convince me that you deserve to exist, then why are you here? And I think that that's a hard statement, but I think a lot of organizations need to look in the mirror and say, why do we exist? Like, why should anybody care? Whether it's a customer or a donor or, any employee, why do we exist? And why should anybody care? And if you can't give a compelling answer to that, then you might not be in the right job. But if you can, then it's your job to look honestly at how then do we need to deliver that? And I think about great institutions like Georgia Tech, because we're both an alumni, go Jackets.
Yep.
I think there's a very compelling reason for Georgia Tech to exist.
Yep.
Now, what is that going to look like 30 years from now? I don't know. And I don't know anybody who does know. And so I think you're right. We need to be honest about that. We need to be having a lot of experiments to say, okay, well, what does the model of higher education look like in a world that is going to look more and more like this?
Yep.
All right. Those are hard moments, but the organizations that have a compelling vision and good leaders are going to make it through.
I 1,000%, which is why both of the things that we're doing is so important, because we have a next generation. I mean, most of the listeners of this podcast are actually in their late 20s, early 30s, which I
Awesome.
love.
Yeah.
Because I can just think about those individuals are really the future of our next 60, 70 years.
Yes.
And also they're building the leaders that are coming up. So, okay. So you've worked in tech, healthcare, and startups. How are you seeing these policy shifts actually impact the ability to innovate in those areas?
Ooh. So I've worked in healthcare. I've worked in financial services. I actually was responsible for innovation for a fintech company.
Okay.
And so I've spent a lot of time thinking about innovation in highly regulated spaces.
Yeah.
And as much as I love technology and as much as I love startups, there are some places where you don't want a lot of leading innovation. You want lagging innovation.
Yeah. What is in the scenario where they say, oh my gosh, you see this a lot in some areas of healthcare where you don't want to be first to market. You want to let them screw it all up.
Right.
And you learn from it and be second to market.
Yes. But even in terms of how technology works its way through industries.
Okay.
Right. So a new payment capability comes online, like PayPal.
Okay.
And you're like, great. PayPal for eBay. Awesome. Faster, easier way to pay than credit cards, and it works great. Okay. Do you want to apply eBay to Medicare? Given not eBay, PayPal to Medicare. Given the challenges of security that PayPal had early on.
Yep.
And the implications of that on Medicare. No, you don't. You want that technology.
The risk assessment is not aligned.
Yeah. You want that technology to really work itself out before we would apply it here.
Ah, I see. Yeah.
And so I think that consumers have these expectations, and that doesn't mean that they're wrong, but I think we don't tend to think about the downside risks as much. We're like, well, Amazon can ship me a package overnight. Why does it take 3 days for my money to move from bank to bank? Okay, there's a reason for that, actually.
Right.
And I don't know how many people have really spent the time thinking about the downside effects of innovation. I do think that regulatory policy and the things that are happening in politics right now, they are having an effect. I think it's hard to know how much of those effects are good and how much of those effects are bad.
Yeah, I agree too. I think it will be very interesting. I don't think I know. It would be very interesting 20 years from now to look back.
Right.
And we're going to be shocked at the things that we thought right now were a great idea. They were horrible ideas.
Sure.
And the things that we thought were horrible ideas that ended up being phenomenal ones.
Great ideas. Yeah.
Exactly.
There's so much of that happening right now in the world, and we need to be, I think, a little more humble and a little more open-minded about some of those things.
Yeah,
because, I think there's a lot of things that we don't see clearly.
Well, and I think it also goes back to what we said in the very beginning. It's a mindset shift. Mm-hmm. And as a human being, I can choose to say, I hate the current political climate and this funding and and make myself miserable. Mm-hmm. Or I can have a mindset shift and say, okay, what can I control in this scenario?
Right.
And what am I going to learn and how am I going to grow or pivot or something like that?
So if we can go big picture for a second, this is totally off script. But here's one of the things that I'm seeing. I'm seeing this growing backlash against capitalism.
Yep.
Right. And you hear this a lot in younger generations, this growing desire for socialism and communism. Right. And I think what that is it is not a backlash against capitalism. I think it's a backlash against unbridled capitalism.
Okay.
I think capitalism is the best system out there, but if it is driven by results and not by vision,
I see what you did there.
it's going to become a problem.
Unbridled. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of younger people in their, Gen Zs, Gen Alphas, they've seen the downside effects of a society that only values financial results.
Absolutely.
And they want to reject that. And I understand why. Now, the answer is not communism. I think the answer is purpose-driven capitalism.
Absolutely.
Right? It's vision-driven capitalism. It's organizations that exist to create some sort of good in the world. And yeah, they've got to make money to do that. I have zero problem with people making money. But if you are just here for the money, you're going to end up making a lot of decisions along the way that are not, you're not going to be proud of eventually, if your sole purpose is to maximize financial returns. And I think that that's really the future. And now it's going to thrash itself out for another several years as, all-in capitalists and communists start to fight each other. But I think the third way is some sort of a vision, purpose-driven capitalism.
Okay. I can buy that. And I think, too, it's that, we've both worked with the younger generation coming in and really being very purpose-driven. And they want to make sure that they're... And I absolutely love that. I think that harnessed is what you were just saying, harnessed in a way that is, okay, we need to be purpose-driven and... we also need to pay the bills.
And we got to pay the bills. And you can get too idealistic and be like, money doesn't matter. Let's just all hug. And it's like, it's like someone's got to pay the bills.
There's a bridge over there we could sleep under.
Right. And so we can't go to that side. But clearly we have seen the downsides of organizations that just pursue profits. And they're willing to sacrifice anything and everything to maximize financial profits. And that's not good either.
No.
And so we have to find a third way. And that's part of what I get excited about when we talk about the Make Work Not Suck podcast and what you're doing. And I know pockets of people all over the country that are coming to this realization of results are important, but we're not here for the results. We need to be here for a bigger purpose. Walt Disney said, "We make money to make movies, not the other way around."
Yes.
The goal was the movies. The goal was not the money.
You know what was so funny? When I was listening to one of your episodes, and it was your recent one, and you guys were talking about going to Six Flags and the coffee scenario. And of course, I'm listening as I'm walking in the Atlanta heat, right? And I translated Six Flags in my head to Disney, and then I heard what the different things were happening, and I thought, this is not Disney's vision or their culture or anything. And then I was reminded, okay, never mind, it wasn't Disney. It was Six Flags. It was a different scenario. But I think that was just my sidebar, because I was just like, wait, what's happening here? Okay, so in speaking about then this challenge, our current level of conflict.
Ooh, conflict.
I love conflict.
Okay.
So tell me, what are your conflict resolution strategies? How do you manage conflict?
My strategies or my habits?
I want to hear your habits first.
Okay, I thought you would. So I am naturally conflict avoidant. It is not something I'm proud of. A lot of it comes from family of origin stuff.
Yep.
But I am just naturally conflict avoidant. My philosophy is very pro-healthy conflict. So I know that conflict never gets better with time. Bad news does not get better with time. And that the only way to handle difficult situations is with honesty, directness, and grace as much as we can. But that doesn't mean I always do that. And so that's where I think I'm a little bit out of alignment with myself. When I'm having a good day, when I'm a good version of myself, I think I deal with conflict relatively well. But I also have a lot of other days when I fall back into the habits and avoid conflict because I'm tired and it's uncomfortable.
Oh, I love this. And you know, one of the things that you said that really stood out, and I think it's so prevalent, is the people who struggle with conflict coming from a family of origin situation. I mean, I hear that, and I want to call that out because I also think that we have an opportunity to help parents learn how important it is to model healthy conflict resolution to their children.
Yeah.
Because those conflict resolution, I think, is one of the best skills you can have if you can do it
It's one of the
well.
most important skills, and very few people are intentional about that.
Yes.
Even in the home. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of employers are now inheriting people who don't know how to handle conflict.
Absolutely.
And especially in the younger generation where it's just so easy to ghost people because so many relationships are digital first. Like that's not how you handle real relationships, but they've never learned how to have a breakup conversation. So they just stop talking. And it's like, look,
Just block.
Just block. It's like, well, what happens if that person sits in the cube next to you? There isn't a block button for that.
You know, back in our day, or at least in my day when I was growing up, and the phone rang, I didn't have caller ID.
Yeah, you don't know who it is. Right.
I'm not answering the phone for the next month.
Right. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the big challenges I see in the workplace for people that are hiring Gen Z and Gen Alphas. It's like they have zero conflict skills. And I think that's going to be a huge thing over the next 20 years is, yeah, you're right. They don't. And they're not going to. Most families are not teaching healthy conflict management skills. They're not learning it in school. And so that's going to fall on employers to say, hey, here's how we handle conflict here.
Right. And I just strongly, one of the reasons, first off, I love conflict, healthy conflict, and I'm not afraid of it at all. And I really am on this mission. I want more and more people to understand what it looks like, how to accomplish it, and why not to be afraid of it. And the beauty of when when you're really afraid about having a conversation with someone and then you actually have that conversation, it almost never goes as badly as the stories we said in our head.
Yep.
And how do you feel after it's done and resolved?
Right.
Amazing.
So much better.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there'll be many more. I want to write a book on conflict resolution.
You should.
So it's on my bucket list. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about culture. Most leaders say they want a healthy culture, but, or they say they have a great culture, right? But their systems scream fear and control. Now, how is a team member, once again, you want to make work not suck, a shitty culture makes work really suck.
Yep.
How as a team member, do you call that out without getting fired?
Very carefully. I think, first of all, it's important to define what we mean by culture.
Go for it.
Because we all feel that, but I've been very dissatisfied with all of the definitions of culture that I've ever seen. They're so broad that they don't tend to be helpful. And so I spent some time deconstructing culture.
Okay.
And so from one engineer to another, I think you might appreciate this. My apologies to everyone out there who's artistic and not wired like an engineer. So the culture of an organization is basically the character of your company, right? Character is broken down into two things: your identity and your habits.
Okay.
Your identity is kind of the story you tell yourself about yourself. And your habits are the things that you do consistently.
Yep.
Right? So if you break down identity in a corporate standpoint, it's your vision, why we're here, your mission, how we're going to achieve whatever it is we think we're going to achieve, and your values, how we say we want to treat each other. Now, there's always a difference between how we say we want to and how we actually do. Right. We can get into that, but values will just kind of... So vision, mission, vision, values is kind of the identity. This is the story we tell ourselves about who we want to be.
Okay.
And that matters a lot,
Absolutely.
right? How aligned we are with it in reality, different conversation, but it matters a lot. Then you go to habits. Things like the cadence in your business. What's the rhythm of your business? Conflict how we handle disagreement. Choices, how we make decisions, right? Is it just whoever screams the loudest? Is it whoever's got the most tenure is right? I know organizations like that.
Oh, absolutely.
That is
or who knows the certain people.
Right. Is it politically right? There's so many, I've seen passive aggressive cultures, right? In terms of we don't actually have the hard conversation. We just smile and nod and then you don't have a job anymore. Those are all massive cultural influences. Care. How do we care for our people? And what do we celebrate?
Oh, I love the celebrate.
The celebrate one's important, right? I've seen a lot of organizations celebrate things with good intent and have it backfire on them because they rewarding the wrong thing.
Yes. Or I also see the leaders who will celebrate something but not really mean it, and then the team knows they don't really mean it, and it's just like like the places that have employee of the month, but someone can't be employee of the month multiple times, so then you finally get to the person who never should have been employee of the month.
Should have been there anyways. Right. So those 8 pieces for me helps when we talk about culture.
Okay.
I'm thinking the vision, why we say we're here, mission, how we're going to do the thing we say we're here to do, the values, how we behave, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, and then the cadence, the rhythm of our business, how we handle conflict, how we make choices, how we care for our people, and who or what we celebrate. In my mind, that, while maybe not comprehensive, is a pretty thorough unpacking of what I mean by culture.
Okay, so how do we make culture not suck?
Ooh. Well, first of all, you've got to be honest about what it actually is, right? Because I've worked with a lot of CEOs that are like, yeah, our culture's great. We've got a foosball table and we do happy hours every Friday. And I'm like, that's none of those things.
Right. Exactly.
Right? Like, I'm all for a happy hour, but that's not actually your culture. The culture is how we make decisions, how we handle failure. Those are more about culture. In my experience, I've never seen an organizational culture healthier than the senior leader. The senior leader
I think you're right.
Sets the ceiling for the health of the organization.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's some organizations that can have micro organizations within them. When you think of, for example, a university, have different department and things like that. But without a doubt, and so I think sometimes when I talk to people and they talk about this whole scenario, like my job sucks, the culture is awful, I want to, and they're asking me like, how can they change? And I'm like, okay, well, like at some point, maybe that's just not the company and job for you either.
Yeah.
And maybe it's part of that you need to go and find one that has, because especially you're not going to at your level change the senior leader.
You're not going to change that.
And if no one else, whatever. So then I also think it's part of this, like be brave to get out there and find one that you love. Okay. So now we've already talked about conflict resolution. Are you ready for some rapid fire questions?
Sure.
I have to find, where did I put my final rapid fire? Okay, well, first, before we do the rapid fire, we'll do a final wrap. So you've built a career helping leaders flourish. What's one thing you're still working on in your own leadership journey?
Oh, man, I got a lot that I'm working on in my leadership journey. Is this where I need to be brave and be badass?
Yes, it is.
Crap. I am currently doing a lot of interior work on myself. I have come to realize over the last couple of years that somebody said, I can't remember who it was, they said, most high achievers are just an anxiety disorder wired for productivity.
Ooh.
That hurts so bad.
That was like a mic drop.
That hurts so bad.
Once again, you're like, were you reading my diary?
And the last 10 years of my life on the personal front, well, also on the professional front, have been very challenging for a variety of reasons. And happy to go into that if you want to have me back on a second episode, because it's going to take the whole episode. And I've just come to realize that there's a lot of anxiety inside of me. And I've always been able to channel that into very productive outlets. And so I've been able to achieve a lot, but it comes at a pretty high internal cost. And so I'm having to turn around and face some of those demons of who am I if I'm not successful? Am I okay with me? Am I okay with me? Do I like me if I'm not all of the things I wanted to be? And that sucks. That is just
it's hard.
It is awful.
Yeah.
But without that, so much of what I have done has been driven by fear and anxiety. And that works really well until it doesn't. And you get no warning. And when it doesn't work, like everything falls apart. And I've had the privilege of being with senior leaders, CEOs, founders, very successful people, and walk through that kind of situation with them. And so
So what was that like watching that and knowing, or are you not self-aware at that point? Because I think sometimes when I watch that going through a journey of something that I fear myself with somebody else, I also have this, like, I'm holding my breath to also see, like, wait, are they going to survive? Does that, right? Like, if they survive, maybe I'll survive.
So I don't know. I don't want to say I'm self-aware, because I feel like that's a very unself-aware thing to say. I would say that I have seen cycles in my life where things have fallen apart. I've had to do some interior work. It's stable for a while, and then things fall apart again, and I have to do more, and then and then it falls apart again. And so I feel like I'm kind of constantly having to come back and relearn these same lessons and I'm finding, wow, that went deeper than I thought it did. So it's not that I haven't done some digging here. It just keeps getting deeper. And so it's been a privilege to walk alongside people who've had life fall apart. And I know the intellectually correct answers, but it's different when it's your own life. And that's a big part of what I'm going through right now is how do you really live with that abundance mentality? How do you, what do you do when the results aren't showing up? When you know the vision, you know the journey, you know the culture, you know what results you're looking for and the results aren't showing up. What do you do in that moment? Do you give up or do you keep going?
Do you pause for a moment and say, should we reflect on what success now actually looks like at this stage in my life?
Absolutely.
I think that's what a lot of the teams and individuals that I coach, a struggle they have is that they started at a phase where success looked like this. And they never reevaluated, wait, what does success really look like for me now? And as we age and learn more, and I love you sharing this struggle because I know so many amazing leaders who are struggling with similar things. And I strongly believe the more that we're willing to be vulnerable and share it, then those who are coming up next who start to struggle, maybe they'll start digging into and doing that inner work a little bit earlier and can make an impact.
So to give you a more specific example, I've got a son with special needs.
Yeah.
He's in a wheelchair. The doctors at the Mayo Clinic can't tell us what his life expectancy will be. He's 12 years old now.
Okay.
He costs a fortune. And we're so blessed to live in Atlanta, near Emory and Choa, and have access to the Mayo Clinic up in Rochester. But that is not cheap.
No.
And so I look around and see the houses that my friends live in, the cars that my friends drive, the vacations that they go on. And it's really easy to compare and to feel like I'm not doing as well. And then I have to remember what's the game that I'm playing here and what does success look like? Because I'm spending a fortune on medical expenses every month. Is that still the game I'm choosing to play? And if so, then I need to have a different set of success criteria. Because I'm not going to have the beach house and all of the other things that a lot of other people have. And I'm not mad at them for that. But that's just not my reality. But it's very easy to get tricked into believing that you're failing when your life doesn't look the way you thought it would or look like the life of other people. And so I think that's a lot of that interior work of it isn't just about the money. It's about the story you tell yourself about the money. And I'm still finding that sometimes the story I tell myself isn't the story I actually want to be sharing.
I think that's powerful. And I think too, I also have a special needs daughter. She's not in a wheelchair. She's 22 now and she's matured a lot. And I will tell you, I had this really strong moment when she was graduating high school, which she did.
Awesome.
And she wasn't going to college.
Mm-hmm.
I only had one child. I really wanted grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
She never intends on getting married. Like any of these things are just not in her future. And I had a little period, and this is nowhere near what you're talking about, but I had this moment of like being mad that I was just like, being an engineer from Georgia Tech, I dreamed of my child would have some successful career. They would make a huge impact on the world.
Right. I'd be the first of 3 generations to go to Georgia Tech.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, it was just like all of these things. And suddenly, and all of my friends, I'm seeing all over the internet, like so-and-so is getting accepted into Stanford, into MIT, into this. Or, we got 5 acceptances of that. Right. And then people...
She's valedictorian. Blah, blah, blah.
Exactly. They're like, where's Brianna going to school? And I'm like...
Shut your mouth.
Yeah.
That's just real.
It is real. And I think it's also just when... and the listeners know, part of my story, I was, the victim of a kidnapping. I escaped. I had severe childhood trauma and lost my first child, was stillborn. And people say to strong people, I never could have done what you did. And I want to encourage people to realize that everyone is fighting their own battle, an internal battle. Yeah. And the more that we're willing to allow people to be vulnerable and say, and it's also that this is exactly what Be Brave, Be Badass is. Because, and also we just found out that we finally got it trademarked. So
nice. Congratulations.
So excited. It's like been on my list for 14 years to do, and I finally did it. So, but it is that I believe every single individual, team, company, organization has their own badass, and it's the best they can absolutely be at where they're at right now, at moving towards in the future. And I believe so many people are not brave enough to do the work, to do the acceptance, to do the things, to step out of their comfort zone, to do what they need to do in order to reach that.
I think it takes a lot of courage to bring your full self to work.
Totally does.
And there are a lot of places that it is not safe to bring your full self to work. So that is not a blanket encouragement to just put it all out there. You got to test the waters and make sure that it's a safe place. But great leaders create safe places for people to bring their whole selves to work. And when they do that, they unlock a level of passion and commitment and creativity that can't be created any other way. Agreed. And so as much as I want to, create the business case with the, tick and tide and, all of the engineering nerd in me wants to believe that everything can be tied back to cause and effect. There is, I don't know if you call it spiritual. I don't know what you would call it, but there's some sort of an uncertain dynamic that safe or badass leaders can create that produces better results. And I don't know how to trace the math through the organization, but I absolutely know that it shows up at the end.
Absolutely. Spot on. Okay, now rapid fire.
All right.
Okay, name a book, podcast, or thought leader that either has you inspired right now or has helped you become the leader that you are today. Book, podcast, or thought leader.
Peter Drucker.
Ooh.
I go all the way back.
Yeah.
The Effective Executive.
Yeah.
Peter Drucker is probably one of the more influential people on everybody else you've read.
Yes.
Like Stephen Covey.
When was that? Do you remember how long ago that book was written?
It was like late 18, early 1900s. I mean, it's amazing how long ago.
Yeah.
But it still applies.
Yeah.
It's still unbelievable. So
that was an unexpected answer.
He's kind of the godfather of management and effectiveness. And if you want to really go back to where it all started, I think you got to go back to Peter Drucker.
Okay. Legacy. What does leaving a legacy mean to you?
Ooh. I think leaving a legacy means leaving the world a better place than you found it.
Love it. Quickly, what's the biggest mistake that you've made in leadership or in something that you've learned the most from?
Realizing how excited I get about vision and how big my culture blind spot is.
I could say something about that. No, I'm kidding.
You can?
That's why culture's third.
No, it's not.
I couldn't resist.
It's not third for me. It would be last for me.
This is great. See,
hey, I promoted
everyone. Your visionary leaders can grow and learn. Okay, what's something on your bucket list?
Italy and Greece with my wife.
I took my daughter to Italy. It was her first outside the U.S. trip. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. So,
But I've been fortunate. I've been able to cross a lot of things off my bucket list. So
yeah.
But that's the next big one.
Okay, perfect. Okay, and then it's a requirement of this podcast that everyone provide their favorite motivational quote. What would be yours?
I hope that I'm not using one that other people have used because it's so good. It should be everyone's favorite quote. Okay. The credit belongs to the man who's in the arena.
So I have that, and no one, I think on this podcast, no one's used that.
Okay.
On my other podcast, the Coffee and Conversation one that should be kicking off season 2, hopefully the beginning of the year, the mental wellness one. Someone, and in my old podcast studio, what was so cool about it is that was his favorite. He was reading the whole thing. And I have in my office in there, I have the woman version of it. So instead of the man of the arena, it's the woman, and it's the person daring greatly, right? Yes. And I was just and it was right behind me. I was like, let me grab this. This is your quote.
Yes.
Yeah, I love this.
So,
well, thank you so much. Sorry, not sorry. We talked for so long. We could have talked for a lot longer.
It was a little over an hour, but hopefully they find something in this that they can redeem.
Hey, if they don't, then okay. So
if Katie can't find something good here, I question if she's really the rock star you say she is.
There you go. There. Now we have the challenge, and I'm pretty confident she would say challenge accepted.
Challenge accepted.
Okay, tell the listeners how they can find you, follow you, and connect with you.
I'm on most social media platforms. Steeringventures.com is my website, and you should be able to find me there or on LinkedIn or Meta, any of the other social platforms as well. Yeah. Meta, Facebook. Are we supposed to call it Meta now?
I don't know. I don't know.
Steeringventures.com is probably the easiest place to find me.
Amazing. Well, thank you for journeying to AGN Studios, coming to historic Druid Hills, Atlanta, and absolutely for adding a lot of badass to this podcast.
Well, thank you. I've loved it.
Badass to this podcast.
I'm trying to bring badass back to podcasting.
I love it. Let's do it. All right. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining me for today's episode of the Badass Leaders Podcast. To hear more interviews with industry experts and learn how to grow your career and leadership potential, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to ensure you do not miss future episodes. This podcast is a production of the AGN Group. To learn more about the AGN Group, visit our website at theagnGroup.com. There, you can discover more about our services, which include hosting workshops, management consulting, brand strategy, keynote speaking, and more. Follow us on all social media channels shown on the screen and displayed in the show notes. And until next week, be brave and be badass.